The night air was thick with dust and gasoline. Engines rumbled in the distance, their echoes rolling across the empty desert road. Under the flickering neon lights of a lonely gas station, a girl stumbled into the glow, barefoot, shaking, and bruised. Her flannel shirt clung to her shoulders, streaked with dirt and dried blood. Her wide, hollow eyes looked like they'd forgotten what safety felt like. The night was silent, except for her shallow breaths and the faint buzzing of the open sign. Then came the thunder, the roar of motorcycles slicing through the darkness. The Hell's Angels had arrived. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of compassion, even in the hardest hearts, then before we go any further, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Because what happened next will remind you that even the roughest souls can carry the deepest humanity. Her name was Lena Carter, just 22 years old. But her eyes told the story of someone who had lived through hell. 2 years earlier, she had been kidnapped by a violent outlaw gang known as the Ravens, men who thrived on fear and cruelty. They didn't just steal her freedom, they stole her identity. They branded her like property, burning their insignia into her skin as a warning to anyone who dare take her back. For months, Lena endured torment, forced to obey, to serve, to survive. But tonight, something inside her snapped. She ran, bleeding, terrified, desperate for one more breath of freedom. When she saw the motorcycles approaching, panic surged through her. Another gang, another nightmare. She fell to her knees on the cold concrete, clutching her ribs as pain throbbed with every breath. As the bikes circled and stopped, she whispered through trembling lips, "Just kill me fast, please." Her voice was raw, empty, stripped of hope. The leader stepped off his Harley, Jackson Reaper Cole. His long hair fell over his shoulders, tattoos crawling down his arms. His eyes, sharp but not unkind. He'd seen blood, betrayal, and death. But the broken girl before him hit differently. She wasn't just scared. She was destroyed. Reaper approached slowly. He told her she was safe now, that no one would hurt her. But his words sounded foreign, unreal. When he reached out to help her stand, she flinched, body tensing in terror. He motioned for his men to hold back and nodded to his medic. "Doc, check her wounds." As Doc knelt and carefully lifted her torn shirt, the world seemed to stop. Branded just below her ribs were the words, "Property of the Ravens." The scar was deep, old, and unmistakable. The men who had lived their lives through violence fell silent. Their faces darkened with quiet fury. Lena turned her face away, whispering, "They said I'd never belong to anyone else, that even if I escaped, no one would ever want something already marked." Her tears hit the pavement, mixing with dust and oil. Reaper's jaw tightened. For a long time, he said nothing. Then finally, softly, "Not anymore." He lifted her gently and carried her inside the gas station diner. The neon lights flickered overhead as he set her down in a booth. His crew stood guard outside. They gave her food, water, and space. Piece by piece, Lena told them everything. The abduction, the abuse, the nights of fear, the branding, the escape. When she finished, Reaper rose and said just one thing to his men. No one does that to a woman and walks away. What followed was swift and silent. The Hell's Angels weren't saints, but they had a code. By dawn, the Ravens were gone. No news stories, no witnesses, just silence. When the sun rose, Lena woke to the smell of coffee and a blanket around her shoulders. Reaper sat quietly across from her. She asked softly, "Did you hurt them?" He only said, "They won't hurt anyone again." In the days that followed, the Angels took Lena under their protection. At their clubhouse, they gave her a small room with a lock on the inside. It was simple, but to her, it meant everything. For days, she barely spoke. She jumped at sudden noises, avoided mirrors, and woke screaming from nightmares. But no one judged her. Doc changed her bandages daily, treating the scar where the brand had burned her. One afternoon, as she stared at it in the mirror, she whispered, It'll never go away. Reaper stood behind her and said quietly, "Scars don't disappear, Lena, but they stop hurting when you decide what they mean." Time passed. She began to heal. She helped in the kitchen, cleaned the bikes, even smiled sometimes among those rough, loud bikers. She found something she never expected. A strange kind of family. They didn't see her as property. They saw her as one of their own. Months later, on the anniversary of her escape, Reaper took her to a tattoo artist they trusted. The old brand had faded into a dark scar. But that day, it was covered with something new. Across the burn, the artist inked the words, "I am free." Tears streamed down her face as she looked in the mirror. For the first time, she saw not what was done to her, but who she had become, a survivor, a fighter. Word spread about what the angels had done. Other women, broken, afraid, began reaching out. Lena decided she wouldn't hide anymore. She volunteered at a shelter for abused women, sharing her story to give others hope. When people asked how she found the courage, she would simply smile and say, "Because someone believed I was worth saving." Reaper never took credit. Sometimes he'd ride by the shelter, leave a donation in the box, and disappear down the road. But Lena always knew. One evening, during a charity ride for the shelter, she stood on a small stage before hundreds of riders. The sun dipped low behind the hills, bathing the motorcycles in gold. She took a deep breath and said, "I once thought the world was only full of monsters. But sometimes the people you fear the most are the ones who show you what humanity really means." The crowd was silent, just the quiet hum of engines and the glint of tears on weathered faces. In the back, Reaper stood with his arms crossed, a faint smile beneath his beard. He didn't need thanks. Watching her stand strong was enough. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Let others hear Lena's story. And remember, hope can rise from the darkest places. And before we close, if you believe scars don't define us, but the courage to rise from them does, drop a in the comments. Because sometimes it takes the darkest night to reveal the brightest souls.